Big news has now arrived on Gunners. You want to know all the details, so follow me until the end of the video. But first, if you are in love with Arsenal, show your love and subscribe to THE channel now and turn on notifications. Here we post daily news and behind the scenes of the biggest club in THE Premier League, Arsenal. Thank you. Why Arsenal are pushing to sign Bruno Guimarães, as Mikel Arteta's midfield vision could leave Martin Zubimendi fighting for his place. Bruno Guimarães could be the missing piece that transforms Arsenal's midfield into one of the most complete units in European football. As the Gunners prepare to defend their Premier League title, Mikel Arteta is reportedly determined to strengthen the heart of his squad, and Newcastle United captain Bruno Guimarães has emerged as one of the club's most ambitious transfer targets. If Arsenal can pull off the deal, it wouldn't just be another marquee signing, it could completely reshape the midfield hierarchy at the Emirates Stadium. According to The Athletic, Arsenal recently made a verbal offer for the Brazilian international through intermediaries. The proposal, believed to be worth less than £60 million, was quickly rejected by Newcastle, who have made it clear they have no intention of selling their captain. The Magpies are equally determined to keep Sandro Tonali despite growing interest from several European clubs, highlighting their desire to preserve the core of Eddie Howe's squad. Even so, Arsenal's interest in Guimarães is easy to understand. Few midfielders in world football combine technical quality, defensive intensity, leadership and tactical intelligence as consistently as the Brazilian. Whether controlling possession from deep, breaking up opposition attacks, carrying the ball through midfield or arriving late inside the penalty area, Guimarães has developed into one of the Premier League's most complete midfielders. Those qualities would immediately elevate Arteta's starting 11. Perhaps even more importantly, his arrival would give Arsenal something every elite team craves: tactical flexibility. A midfield featuring Declan Rice, Bruno Guimarães, and Martin Odegaard would allow Arteta to adjust his system depending on the opponent without sacrificing quality. Both Rice and Guimarães are capable of operating as the deepest midfielder or in a more advanced box-to-box role, making Arsenal significantly less predictable. That versatility could become especially valuable in high-pressure matches against Europe's strongest sides. It would also create more freedom for Odegaard. With Rice and Guimarães sharing defensive responsibilities, Arsenal's captain could spend more time influencing the final third, creating chances between the lines and dictating attacking moves without constantly worrying about dropping deep to help build possession. While that scenario sounds ideal for Arsenal, it could create an uncomfortable challenge for Martin Zubimendi. Although the Spanish midfielder remains one of Europe's smartest holding players, there were periods last season where he struggled to impose himself physically against more athletic midfields. If Guimarães arrives, Arteta would suddenly have another elite option capable of playing both as a number 6 and a number 8, potentially reducing Zubimendi's opportunities in the starting lineup. Competition for places would immediately intensify. Fortunately for Arsenal, Guimarães has repeatedly demonstrated that positional versatility is one of his greatest strengths. Shortly after joining Newcastle from Lyon in 2022, the Brazilian explained that he was comfortable playing virtually every midfield role. "I've already played everywhere," he joked during an interview with Globo. "In my first few games I played in different positions. Sometimes with two midfielders, sometimes as the deepest player. I can perform every role, but if I had to choose, I'd rather play as the second midfielder. That's the role I had at Atlético Paranaense and Lyon. But I can also play as the holding midfielder." That adaptability has remained one of the defining features of his career. Guimarães has frequently emphasized that modern football rewards players capable of performing multiple tactical roles, believing versatility gives players a significant advantage at both club and international level. Later, speaking to Sky Sports, he admitted that although he naturally prefers playing as a number 8, he has no problem operating deeper if that's what the team requires. "Honestly, I prefer playing as an 8, Guimarães explained. "But my role here as a 6 is exactly what the team needs. My job is to help us build from the back, find the wingers and the forwards. I can play both positions. For me, the most important thing is helping the team win." Those comments perfectly explain why Arteta views him as such an attractive target. Rather than signing a specialist who excels in only one position, Arsenal would be acquiring a midfielder capable of adapting to multiple tactical systems throughout a single match. That kind of flexibility has become increasingly valuable as the demands of competing in the Premier League and Champions League continue to grow. If the transfer eventually materializes, Arsenal's midfield could reach another level altogether. Rice would continue providing his world-class defensive presence. Guimarães would bring creativity, intensity, and balance, while Odegaard would have even greater freedom to dictate attacks in advanced areas. Meanwhile, Zubimendi, Miles Lewis-Skelly and Mikel Merino would provide exceptional depth, giving Arteta the ability to rotate his squad without sacrificing quality. For a club with ambitions of winning multiple trophies, that level of competition may prove just as valuable as the signing itself. Of course, convincing Newcastle to part ways with their captain remains the biggest obstacle. Guimarães has become one of the faces of Eddie Howe's project, wearing the captain's armband and playing a central role in Newcastle's rise over the past few seasons. His influence stretches far beyond his performances on the pitch, making him one of the club's most valuable assets both technically and emotionally. For that reason, Newcastle have little incentive to negotiate unless an extraordinary offer arrives. Arsenal, however, understand that opportunities to sign players of Guimarães' caliber rarely come around. Arteta has gradually built a squad capable of challenging for the Premier League and competing deep into the Champions League, but the club's recruitment strategy has never been about standing still. Every summer has brought another piece to the puzzle, with the goal of creating a squad that can maintain elite performance across multiple competitions. Adding Guimarães would represent another step in that evolution. His experience in the Premier League means there would be virtually no adaptation period. Unlike many overseas signings, the Brazilian already understands the physical demands, tactical intensity, and relentless schedule of English football. That familiarity could allow him to make an immediate impact from the opening weeks of the season. It would also provide Arteta with far greater tactical freedom. Against possession-heavy opponents, Rice and Guimarães could operate as a double pivot, giving Arsenal additional defensive security while allowing the fullbacks to push higher up the field. In matches where Arsenal dominate possession, Guimarães could advance into more creative areas, helping Odegaard overload central spaces and create numerical superiority between the lines. That level of versatility is difficult to defend against. Opposing managers would no longer be preparing for a predictable midfield structure. Instead, Arsenal could alter the positioning of Rice, Guimarães, and Odegaard multiple times during a single match without making a substitution, creating constant uncertainty for opposing defenses. There are benefits beyond tactics as well. The Premier League season has become increasingly demanding, with clubs balancing domestic competition, European fixtures, and international breaks. Squad depth is no longer a luxury reserved for the biggest clubs. It's a necessity for any team hoping to compete for major trophies. Last season demonstrated exactly why. Injuries and fixture congestion forced Arsenal to rely heavily on a limited group of midfielders, occasionally disrupting the rhythm that made them title contenders. Bringing in a player of Guimarães' quality would help distribute the workload more effectively while reducing the physical burden on Rice and Odegaard over the course of a long campaign. Naturally, increased competition would create difficult selection decisions. Players such as Zubimendi, Merino, and Lewis-Skelly would know that starting places are earned every week rather than guaranteed by reputation. While that could initially prove frustrating for some individuals, Arteta has repeatedly emphasized that internal competition raises standards throughout the squad. Championship-winning teams rarely succeed with only 11 dependable players. Instead, they rely on 20 or more footballers capable of stepping into the starting lineup without significantly lowering the team's level. That depth has often separated recent Premier League champions from the rest of the competition. For Arsenal, signing Guimarães would not simply be about replacing one midfielder with another. It would be about building a midfield capable of adapting to every opponent, surviving inevitable injuries, and maintaining elite performance from August through May. Whether Newcastle eventually soften their stance remains uncertain. But Arsenal's reported interest sends a clear message about the club's ambitions. Rather than settling after lifting the Premier League trophy, Arteta appears determined to strengthen one of the strongest squads in England even further. If that ambition eventually results in Bruno Guimarães arriving at the Emirates Stadium, Arsenal's midfield could become one of the most balanced, versatile and complete units in European football, a foundation capable of sustaining another serious challenge for domestic and continental honours. Why Arsenal must pursue the perfect alternative in Bruno Guimarães to complete their dream midfield. There are transfer targets that make sense on paper, and then there are players who feel like they were built to wear an Arsenal shirt. For years, Bruno Guimarães has belonged firmly in the second category. Long before he established himself as one of the Premier League's elite midfielders, the Brazilian was already viewed as a perfect fit for Mikel Arteta's footballing philosophy. His vision, composure under pressure, defensive intelligence and ability to influence games in every phase made him one of the most exciting young midfielders in South America. The frustrating part for Arsenal supporters is that the opportunity to sign him has existed more than once. The Gunners were first linked with Guimarães during the January 2020 transfer window while he was still starring for Atlético Paranaense. Even at just 22 years old, those who followed Brazilian football believed he possessed all the qualities needed to thrive in Europe. At the time, Vinicius Furlan, a journalist and Atlético Paranaense supporter who covered the club for Trates TV, described Guimarães as by far the best midfielder in the Brazilian league. He even went as far as calling him the finest player he had ever seen represent the club. That level of praise was difficult to ignore. Yet Arsenal hesitated. Instead of moving decisively, the club watched Guimarães join Lyon, where he quickly confirmed the potential that had made him one of Brazil's brightest prospects. His performances in France only increased interest from across Europe, and Arsenal once again found themselves monitoring his progress. History repeated itself. While Arsenal weighed up their options, Newcastle United acted with conviction. The Magpies moved aggressively during the January 2022 transfer window, investing around £40 million to secure Guimarães' signature. It was a bold statement from a club beginning a new era under its ambitious ownership, and one that has paid off spectacularly. Looking back now, it is difficult not to wonder what might have happened had Arsenal completed the deal first. A midfield built around Bruno Guimarães before the arrival of Declan Rice could have accelerated the club's rise under Arteta. While nobody can say with certainty how history would have unfolded, there is little doubt that Arsenal missed the chance to sign a player who has since become one of the Premier League's most influential midfielders. Now, the story may not be over. Recent reports have once again linked Arsenal with Guimarães, with the Daily Mail claiming that representatives connected to the player have held discussions involving the North London club. While Newcastle remain determined to keep their captain, particularly amid uncertainty surrounding the future of Sandro Tonali, the renewed speculation has reignited hope that Arsenal could make another attempt. It will not be an easy negotiation. Newcastle are under no pressure to sell one of their most important players, and Guimarães remains central to Eddie Howe's long-term project. Any potential deal would likely require a substantial transfer fee as well as convincing the player that a move to the Emirates represents the next step in his career. Even so, Arsenal should explore every realistic possibility. At 28 years old, Guimarães is playing arguably the best football of his career. Rather than showing signs of slowing down, he continues to develop into a more complete midfielder with each passing season. That continued improvement explains why Manchester City were strongly linked with him in 2025. Pep Guardiola clearly recognized the qualities that make Guimarães so special, and from Arsenal's perspective, avoiding the prospect of seeing him strengthen a direct rival was almost as important as signing him themselves. If Arteta could somehow bring Guimarães to North London while also continuing to strengthen the attack with players such as Morgan Rogers, Arsenal's starting 11 would take another enormous step forward. The prospect of a midfield featuring Declan Rice, Bruno Guimarães and Martin Odegaard, with Rogers adding creativity and attacking versatility further forward, is one capable of competing with virtually any side in Europe. For a team that has already proven it can challenge for major trophies, adding Guimarães would feel less like a routine transfer and more like unlocking another level. The numbers explain why. According to FotMob's Premier League data from last season, Guimarães ranked among the top 4% of midfielders for goals per 90 minutes, the top 7% for non-penalty expected goals, the top 16% for assists, the top 14% for chances created, the top 1% for fouls won, and the top 19% for possessions won in the attacking third. Very few midfielders combine creativity, ball progression, defensive work rate and goal threat as effectively as the Brazilian. He is not simply excellent in one aspect of the game, he impacts every phase. That complete profile is precisely what makes him such an attractive option for Arteta. Whether controlling possession, breaking opposition lines with progressive passes, winning duels, or arriving late in the penalty area, Guimarães consistently influences matches in multiple ways. If Arsenal truly have an opportunity to revisit a transfer they let slip away years ago, it is one they should pursue with everything they have. Elite midfielders capable of transforming title-winning teams rarely become available. When they do, clubs with Arsenal's ambitions cannot afford to hesitate a second time. Even if Newcastle continue to insist that Guimarães is not for sale, Arsenal's reported interest reflects something much bigger than a single transfer pursuit. It highlights the club's determination to keep evolving. Winning the Premier League is one achievement. Defending it is an entirely different challenge. Every rival will spend the season searching for ways to slow Arsenal down, meaning Arteta cannot afford to rely solely on the squad that delivered success. Marginal improvements often separate champions from teams that fall just short. Guimarães represents exactly that kind of improvement. His arrival would not necessarily force Arteta to abandon his current tactical approach. Instead, it would give the Arsenal manager the flexibility to adapt depending on the opponent, the competition, or even the state of a match. Against teams that defend deep, Guimarães has the vision and passing range to unlock compact defensive blocks. Against sides that press aggressively, his composure under pressure and ability to carry the ball through midfield can completely bypass the first line of pressure. In tighter contests, his defensive awareness and relentless work rate allow him to influence the game without dominating possession. Very few midfielders offer that complete package. Another factor working in Arsenal's favour is Guimarães' familiarity with the Premier League. Unlike players arriving from overseas leagues, there would be virtually no adjustment period to the speed or physical demands of English football. He has already proven he can perform consistently against elite opposition while handling the pressure that comes with playing for one of the league's most ambitious clubs. That experience would be invaluable in a squad expected to compete on multiple fronts. The Champions League places different tactical demands on midfielders than domestic football, often requiring players capable of controlling possession under intense pressure while remaining disciplined defensively. Guimarães has repeatedly demonstrated those qualities against top-level opponents, making him an attractive fit for Arsenal's European ambitions as well. His leadership should not be overlooked, either. Captaining Newcastle has added another dimension to his game. Beyond his technical ability, he has grown into one of the emotional leaders of the squad, setting standards through his competitiveness and willingness to take responsibility during difficult moments. Those characteristics align closely with the culture Arteta has spent years building at Arsenal. The manager has consistently prioritized mentality alongside talent, targeting players who embrace responsibility rather than shy away from it. Guimarães fits that profile naturally, bringing both experience and personality without sacrificing his tactical discipline. Of course, much will depend on Newcastle's position throughout the remainder of the transfer window. Should they remain firm in their stance, Arsenal may ultimately be forced to explore alternative midfield targets. The market offers several talented players, but very few combine Guimarães' Premier League experience, positional versatility, leadership qualities, and technical consistency. Replacing that profile would be extremely difficult. Even if a transfer never materializes, Arsenal's reported interest sends a strong message about the direction of the club. The recruitment team is not simply searching for depth, they are targeting footballers capable of raising the overall level of an already elite squad. That ambition is exactly what supporters have come to expect. After years of rebuilding under Arteta, Arsenal are no longer assembling a team capable of competing for major honours. They are refining one that already has. Whether Guimarães eventually becomes part of that project remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. Players with his combination of intelligence, versatility, and proven Premier League quality rarely become available. If circumstances change during the transfer window, Arsenal will almost certainly be among the clubs ready to act. For now, the Brazilian remains one of the most compelling names linked with the Emirates Stadium, and his situation is likely to remain one of the most closely watched storylines of the summer as Arsenal continue shaping a squad designed not only to win titles, but to sustain success for years to come.